Hello everyone. So in the last lecture, we had seen something about the segments. So if I'm not wrong, you are very much clear about the segments right now. After studying the segments, you also have a very clear idea how the segments work. And after moving on with the segments, now we are on our way to study the area that is called as the effects. Okay. So what is the effects of these segments, or what are the basic ideas, what are the basic changes these segments make in our environment, is our first study. Today first study is something related to greenhouse effect. So we had done the part of greenhouse gases. So if you remember very clearly, if I'm not wrong, we had done the concept of greenhouse gases. So you have to be clear with the concept of greenhouse gases, because unless and until you are not having a clear idea about the greenhouse gases, it becomes really very hard to understand the greenhouse effect. Okay, so let's start with the greenhouse gases and slowly we'll move with from greenhouse gases to also that is greenhouse effect, and then how these effects takes place and how they work. So, what do you mean by a greenhouse gas? A greenhouse effect. Basically, it is a process of radiation. Okay. So, consider that some kind of radiation, जैसे हमने पहले atmosphere में discuss किया था, that there are different layers of atmosphere. So, if you remember, the very first layer, that is troposphere. So, troposphere का हम mention क्यों कर रहे हैं? This troposphere has the upper layer that is called as stratosphere. And why these two layers are important for us? Because these two layers have a major gaseous component which are there playing a major role in greenhouse effect. So basically the troposphere and the stratosphere has gaseous content which are favorable to the earth, but at the same time these gaseous component, if becomes at a larger amount, okay, these can also cause a very harmful effect. That means they can actually create a very severe effects such as global warming, which we'll be seeing in the next part. So henceforth हमने पहले segments देखा था. Also, you know that the stratosphere contains one of the important part, and that is called as an ozone. And why ozone is important? Because again this part, that is ozone, is having a role or major role in the greenhouse effect. Okay, so what basically is greenhouse effect? It is a process of radiations. रेडिएशंस इन सेंस दैट मीन्स सन में से जो भी एनर्जी हमें मिल रही है वो एटमॉस्फेयर के थ्रू हमारे पास आती है, और एटमॉस्फेयर के थ्रू हमारे पास दैट मीन्स अर्थ में आती है. एंड व्हाट इट डज, it is basically warming up the atmosphere, or it is basically warming up the globe. Okay, and this warming up of the globe is called as the greenhouse effect. Now, what do you mean by greenhouse effect with terms of greenhouse gases? So we know that the radioactivity, that means जो solar energy, जो solar radiations sun से आएंगे वो क्या होगा, कैप्चर करना होगा, राइट? उसके लिए कौन इम्पोर्टेंट होता है? So उसके लिए इम्पोर्टेंट होता है that is called as the greenhouse gases. So basically क्या होता है, when the sun emits out the solar energy or heat energy in a very large amount, okay, the rays move downwards, okay, because we have a gravity, earth has a gravity, so it gets attracted and it moves down. So when it is moving in a downward direction, the radiation are moving in a downward direction, what happens, the gaseous material which are surrounding the earth atmosphere called as the greenhouse gases. So you should keep in mind which are the major greenhouse gases. That is, carbon dioxide is one of the very major greenhouse gas. So these greenhouse gases, what they do, they try to capture or they try to hold on this radiation. So basically it has two main roles. That means greenhouse gases has two main roles. The first main role is they trap the radiation which is coming from the sun energy directly, and then passing it into the earth atmosphere, that means towards the earth, by a process of filtration. Okay, so greenhouse gases henceforth is very much important because it is one of the important criteria to protect the life system on the earth. Okay, and what major is the role of greenhouse effect? Greenhouse effect means when the radiations are directed towards the surface, how they create a warming effect, how they trap the energy, how much of energy does it remove it out from the earth's surface, what kind of intensity has this radiation, that means to warm your temperature or to make able for the living survival, for the organism, for their survival, for their growth, for the development, for the reproduction, etc., etc. So that is basically why greenhouse effect is important. Now what happens? The intensity which the sun gives, the radiation which the sun emits is very high. It is very larger in condition, and when these larger condition areas, that means the effects which we get from this sun radiation can be harmful if obtained very directly. That means अगर sun rays की direct contact में organism, especially when we talking about the human organism, when they come directly in contact with the sun radiation, there might be some kind of problems created because of these radiations. For example, it can be a skin cancer or different kinds of cancer, or it can be different kind of allergic problem, skin irritations or eye irritations, etc., etc. So that is one of the major reasons why greenhouse effect is important. Now you can see in this picture how the greenhouse effect takes place. Basically, like I said, that the rays are coming down. Okay, so it is entering the earth's surface, but at the same time we can find a lighter part over here, light blue part over here, and this light blue part is nothing else but our atmosphere. So basically what is happening over here right now is this part is being filtering the radiations. Okay, and you can see over here, so I've told you there are some greenhouse gases which are very important for the human survival, and these greenhouse gases play a major role in trapping up the gaseous material. So what does these greenhouse gases do? So you can see over here, for example, the major greenhouse gases, that is carbon, nitrogen, that is nitrous oxides. These products, what they do, they capture the sun radiation which are having UV capacity, which is not resistible to the earth atmosphere. And what is done is these greenhouse gases, they trap the energy. After trapping the energy, they filter the energy, and filtered energy is passed on to earth. So you can see from this itself part, you can just look at the cursor, and you can see over here the sun radiations are being trapped by greenhouse gases. Some of the part of these greenhouse gases are emitting out the radiations towards the earth, while the other is sent back to the atmosphere, and this sending back of atmosphere into the atmosphere is very important so that our global temperature is maintained, because if the global temperature is not maintained, the worst conditions may arise because of ultraviolet radiation, infrared radiation. Okay, the next important thing, when these rays enter into the earth's surface, also at times they do not directly get absorbed into the earth's surface, because there is one more reason. Henceforth we call that plant more trees, because plant have the capability to capture the radiation. Okay, and what humans have created, humans have burnt, cut the forest, burned the forest, due to which what has happened, the greenhouse effect has accelerated, and there is a rise in temperature, because plants आपके पास नहीं है ये हीट एनर्जी सोलर रेडिएशंस को कैप्चर करने के लिए. प्लांट्स अगर होते ज़्यादा अमाउंट में अर्थ सरफेस पे, तो क्या करते, ये जो सोलर रेडिएशंस एमिट हो रही है, अर्थ के अंदर एंटर हो रही है, इसे कैप्चर करेंगे और फोटोसिंथेसिस प्रोसेस में कन्वर्ट करेंगे. बिकॉज ये फोटोसिंथेसिस प्रोसेस में कन्वर्ट हो जाएगा, इसमें क्या होगा, you'll have a two-way effect. That is, one way, the earth temperature will be in a controlled manner, and second important thing, the humans and the organisms which are able to feed on the food of the organism, that is producer or plant, will get the food. But what we have done it, we have cut down the forest, we have burned the forest, created into fossil fuels for our own use, and effectives, there is a rise in the temperature. And what is this rise in the temperature? What we call it as the global warming process. Okay. Let's move on. Now what happens when these enter the earth's surface? If there is no plant area or less plant area, they will either directly enter into the earth surface. Okay, that means ज़मीन गर्म हो जाना, बहुत ज़्यादा हीट हो जाना, अर्थ बहुत ज़्यादा हीटेड हो जाती है ड्यूरिंग द समर सीजन्स. That is because of direct radiation. On another hand, when there are land areas where the plantation is there, so you can see over here in this area, see, when the plantation is there or when the water bodies are there, okay, you can see over here also, water bodies are there, they reflect back the radiations which are harmful or which are not required. So earth itself has its own capability or ability to get how much heat it wants. ऐसा नहीं होता है कि सारी हीट आई वो सारी हीट अर्थ सरफेस ले लेगी. इट्स वेरी रॉन्ग. द अमाउंट ऑफ temperature which the earth requires will be absorbed, and if favorable conditions are there, if favorable situations are there, for example, if good amount of plantation, if good amount of water, good amount of reflectory material are available, these material will reflect back the atmospheric temperature back to the above the earth atmosphere. So henceforth greenhouse effect is more important. So basically it is a natural effect ना, ये कोई artificial effect नहीं है, ये काफी ज़्यादा natural effect है. And why is this natural effect? Because this natural effect has created the life supporting system. Okay, henceforth life supporting system that not only on the land but also in the oceans, because oceans में भी organisms survive है. Next one. So we have given a very descriptive idea about the greenhouse gases, but also we have to look forward again that major greenhouse gases which we studied in the last time was carbon dioxide, nitrogen products, etc., etc. Similarly, we have to study the percentage. Now, why do we study the percentage? Because in last examination the percentage were only asked, and again there becomes a confusion. Okay, so the percent of greenhouse gases are water vapors 36 to 70%. Now this may vary again. ये हमने इतना वेरिएशन क्यों दिया है? दैट इज फ्रॉम 9 to 26%, 4 to 9%, 3 to 7%, or 36 to 70% is for the reason because in the last time, that is last lecture of atmosphere, we had discussed one point that as the sphere changes, as the globe changes, as the weather changes, as region changes, atmosphere changes. When atmosphere changes, gaseous component कम ज़्यादा हो सकते हैं. Henceforth, there is a variation. So, water vapors can be found in the greenhouse gases of 36 to 70%. So, सोचिए अगर काफ़ी ज़्यादा अच्छे अमाउंट में वाटर वेपर एटमॉस्फेरिक कंडीशन में होता है, स्ट्रेटोस्फीयर में, ट्रोपोस्फीयर में प्रेजेंट होता है, नेचुरली इफेक्ट ज़्यादा नहीं होगा, दैट इज ग्लोबल वार्मिंग ज़्यादा नहीं होगा. सिमिलरली कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड प्रेजेंट होना बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी होता है बिकॉज इट इज़ वन ऑफ द मेजर फैक्टर which captures good heat energy. Okay, similar goes with the methane and similar goes with the ozone. So ozone is a different kind of structure which we'll be studying in the next lecture, that is how ozone breakdowns, what is the role of the ozone, and how basically it affects on our globe. So it is one of the basic important percentage area to be kept in mind because it is also an area which contains cloud in it. Okay, badal. So because of this cloudy area, there is a difference in the absorption and emission of the radiation. So if there is a very cloudy area, the heat energy which will be trying to reach the Earth's surface cannot reach easily because of the large cloudy area, which we can see majorly in the rainy season. And if it is a very clear weather, the emitted heat can be easily absorbed by the Earth's surface. So that is greenhouse gases. Now, how does this process of greenhouse gases or greenhouse effect takes place? Basically, the sun emits out energy in the form of, like we said, as ultraviolet, visible, and infrared. Okay, so it is written over here near infrared, but it is almost like a condition of today. It is infrared radiation. That means very high radiations, which has a capacity to cause direct burning effect. So that is an area, radiation capacity of a sun. So this sun basically gives out a radiation, and we receive this radiation, which is in a filtered form of around, of course, distance of the sun and the earth is very much. So basically this is energy is 26%. Okay, and how much the earth absorbs, that is only 19%. So we have the capacity to only absorb, that is earth has only the capacity to absorb of 19% of energy. If it exceeds, okay, so consider again the same thing, that it changes according to the region. So it's not one definite digit which we are talking about. It changes according to region. When it changes according to region, it of course has a different variation of solar effect on that particular area. For example, you'll find that even in the summers also, that it is much part of northern part having a cold area, a cold atmosphere. So there is a cloudy part, and you can't get much of the sun rays for that major part of the earth. On another hand, the cities or the part of, especially the southern part, you'll find that there is a very less amount of cloudy areas. Rather, it is very humid area or humid atmosphere, and because of this humid atmosphere, the radiations which are reaching the earth's surface are very high, and henceforth there is, we can say that it actually has a direct interaction. Okay, so if it exceeds, you can have a greenhouse or global warming effect. Now when this earth what happens when it enters into the earth's surface, it can cause two major effects. Okay, so you know the part that is called as wavelength. We had studied the part this part in the our physics, that is wavelength. So if it has a much larger wavelength, longer wavelength, it will be absorbed more. So that is the same reason we had shown it in the last picture, that some are emitted back, some are absorbed, and some are again transferred back into atmosphere. So that is the reason, because it is having a different kind of wavelength. So what our atmosphere does, it gains the radiations which are useful. It captures the radiations which are useful, and as I said, atmosphere works as a filter. ये छन्नी की तरह काम करता है, फिल्टर की तरह काम करता है, फिल्टर होके हमारे पास जो हीट एनर्जी पहुंचती है वो ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस की वजह से ही पहुंचती है. सो अगर ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस काफ़ी ज़्यादा गुड क्वांटिटी में होंगे, काफ़ी ज़्यादा भी नहीं, गुड क्वांटिटी में होंगे, तो इक्विलिब्रियम मेंटेन होगा. दैट मीन्स अर्थ का टेम्परेचर मेंटेन होगा, ना ज़्यादा अर्थ कोल्ड होगी, ना ज़्यादा अर्थ ठंडी होगी. सो दैट इज बेसिकली कॉल्ड एज इक्विलिब्रियम. So in this picture you can very clearly see how it works. So we have shown it in the earlier picture also, but it is much clearer now because we have given the description also. So you can see that I've said that there is a wavelength difference. Okay, so the larger arrows can be considered to have larger wavelength, smaller arrows smaller wavelength, more smaller arrows less wavelength. Now what happens, sun radiation आ रहा है, ये you can just look at the cursor. I'm showing it for your description. This is our atmosphere. The atmosphere contains the greenhouse gases. So where are the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere? It's in troposphere, and stratosphere is a helpful segment for it. Now what happens? ज़्यादा वेवलेंथ अगर होता है तो ये डायरेक्टली एंटर कर जाता है बिकॉज एटमॉस्फेयर के गैसेस भी उसे कंट्रोल नहीं कर पाएंगे। हेंसफोर्थ एटमॉस्फेयर में गैसेस काफ़ी अच्छे अमाउंट में होने चाहिए। नेक्स्ट वन, ये क्या हो जाएगा, ये रेडिएशन जो आ रहा है ज़्यादा वेवलेंथ के साथ में ये एब्जॉर्ब हो जाएगा अर्थ सरफेस में। ओके, अब एब्जॉर्ब होने के लिए आपके पास क्या चाहिए, तो अर्थ सरफेस के ऊपर आपको चाहिए काफ़ी गुड अमाउंट ऑफ प्लांटेशन, ग्रीनरी। द नेक्स्ट वन, जो रेडिएशन काफ़ी कम अमाउंट में है एट एटमॉस्फेयर बिकॉज फुलफिल हो चुका है अर्थ का टेम्परेचर, अब क्या करेगा, एटमॉस्फेयर उसे बाहर निकालना शुरू कर देगा। सो दैट इज अ बाउंस बैक ऑफ रेडिएशन। ओके, अब ये बाउंस बैक होने के बाद में और एक होता है इफेक्ट, सम एनर्जी ऑफ दिस रेडिएशन, this smaller wavelength gets trapped in atmosphere. Okay, somehow they manage to get trapped in this atmosphere and they again revert back. Okay, and this revert back again, what it does, it warms up the atmosphere of your earth surface. So basically global warming का जो process है हमें इसी से समझ में आ जाएगा that if there is less amount of plantation on the earth, you will not be able to control the temperature which is coming there from the sun, and of course because ये रिफ्लेक्ट करने के लिए, एब्जॉर्ब करने के लिए कोई प्लांटेशन नहीं होगा, आपका टेम्परेचर क्या होगा, बढ़ता जाएगा। ओके, दैट मीन्स आपका ग्लोबल वार्मिंग हो जाएगा। सो इसके एडवांटेजेस क्या होते हैं, सो ग्रीन हाउस इफेक्ट is important because it is one of the life source of earth because it controls the temperature of the earth. Now temperature of the earth means not only it is maintaining the temperature but also keep in mind that is it is warming up and it is cooling down. Okay, both the things are done at complementary levels. But अगर ग्रीन हाउस इफेक्ट ज़्यादा हो गया, सो मैंने ये पहले भी आपको बताया था, इस स्लाइड में आप देख सकते हो, ग्रीन हाउस इफेक्ट होना मतलब क्या होता है, if the radiations of higher wavelength enter into the earth's surface, if there is less amount of greenhouse gas in atmosphere, the smaller wavelength will also get reverted back, and because they will get reverted back, that means what, they will have infrared radiation, and when the infrared radiation enter into the earth surface, आपका temperature earth का काफ़ी ज़्यादा बढ़ जाएगा compared to that of the normal temperature. इससे सबसे ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम क्या होगा, it will be causing an effect on the upper part, that is the northern regions or the northern zone poles, especially जहाँ पे हम आइसबर्ग्स या फिर आइस कैप्स जिसे हम कहते हैं, ग्लेशियर्स जहाँ पे होते हैं, इट विल स्टार्ट मेल्टिंग डाउन, और ये हमने कंसेप्ट लास्ट इसमें डिस्कस किया था इन द वेरी फर्स्ट पार्ट, दैट इज द पेरेमोफ्रॉस्ट। सो हमने ये कंसेप्ट डिस्कस किया था दैट द लैंड एरिया विच इज कवर्ड विद द ice area for more than 2 years, 2 or more than 2 years will be called as permafrost. So यहाँ पे क्या होगा, टेम्परेचर काफ़ी बढ़ जाएगा, and of course because of the rise in the temperature, this will of course start melting. Now what happens if it gets melted, you know it very clear, it will cause an increase in the natural water body, that means हाइड्रोस्फीयर आपका बढ़ जाएगा। So हर एक चीज मेंटेन होना, बैलेंस होना काफी ज्यादा जरूरी होता है। सो इफ देयर इज अ राइज इन द वाटर लेवल, देयर विल बी सुनामी और फ्लड। सो दैट इज द रीजन व्हाई ग्रीन हाउस इफेक्ट इज important. So you might have seen very clearly that we are going step by step in the process of understanding the concepts. See you in the next lecture. Till then, study hard.